Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Drinks and Dave show. And we are so happy to have with us again Mr. Tim Swanson, the host of Cigars Daily and the owner of Cigars Daily Plus. So we'd like to welcome, and let me give them some walking music. Woo! So welcome, Tim. Thank you so much for joining us again. We certainly do appreciate it.
My pleasure to be here, guys. It's great to hang out with you again. It's been a while.
I'm a little ticked off that he's here, though, Dave. Let me tell you why. I was supposed to get a haircut this weekend, and I didn't feel like, so I didn't go right. So I'm having a bad hair day. So I'm wearing a hat, and then you got this jackass coming in looking like the best guy in the cigar world ever.
But the thing is, Dave, you know a barber, so I mean,
yeah,
it's got you there.
True.
So true. Before we have a couple bit of administrative things real quick, if you guys don't mind, one of our very first subscribers, who happens to be my sister-in-law, she goes by Dreamweaver. Sadly, her husband passed away this past weekend, so we just want to kind of dedicate the show to her. She's been a real good subscriber to us, and so all of our prayers and stuff go out to her and her family. So I just wanted to do that real quick, if you wouldn't mind. I thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we usually go around the horn, Tim. Like I said, I'm today, Drinks and Daves, obviously, and I want to address one thing, because I know on your show Monday night you had mentioned, thankfully, that you were going to be on the show tonight, and Billy looked at you like, "What are you going to be on a barber show for?" So I just clarified. That's why I put the Dave and Barber Dave Shaves and such, because that's another channel, not the Drinks and Dave.
Oh, did I mention the wrong channel?
No, that's okay. No big deal.
Very much something I would do, by the way.
No, not a big deal. But we usually go around and see what we're drinking. I'm drinking heavy stuff tonight. I'm having Coke or Pepsi Zero, but I'm smoking a Espinosa Wasabi.
Wasabi.
Love this thing. Dave, what are you smoking and drinking?
Can I tell you a little story about this?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm driving home today, and I get this notification that boom, there's a video premiering on Tim's channel, and I'm like, first of all, what the hell? This guy's supposed to be not working on Tuesdays, right? But so I go to watch it, and I suggest everybody go watch this video. It's hilarious, right? He's apologizing to our wives for getting us sucked into this hobby, right? So I get home, and there's an order from a cigar store he knows very well, this big box. And my wife's not home quite yet, and I'm unpacking the thing, and then here she comes through the door and sees all these cigars. Because once you get, you get a shipment in, you got to lay them out to take a picture to share with all your buddies and stuff. And then she goes, oh, is that what that charge was? And I said, yeah, but I got a video you need to watch. It's Tim's fault. So
there you go. It's not your fault.
Not my fault. So, but in that, I got the knuckle sandwich. So I'm having my first knuckle sandwich.
Is that the Habano?
I don't know. It's what is? No, it's not the. Yeah. It's not. I was worried it'd be too strong. It's not.
Good. Yeah. Espinosa typically makes pretty punchy cigars.
But hey,
Guy Fieri's into that Connecticut. He likes that one a lot.
That really, so speaking of Guy Fieri, Tim, that really surprised me. Was he as genuine as he seemed on that video with you guys?
Yeah.
He seemed like a regular guy that you could sit down and have a drink with.
Yeah. I've worked with some really awesome people in the cigar world in the entertainment world doing Cigars Daily, and it's been a cool privilege, but you always kind of wonder what these people are really like. And a lot of them are really who they say they are. You hear about some of these guys who are, hi there, Amber. You hear about some of these guys who are actually D-bags in real life, right? But truthfully, he showed up, was like absolutely awesome, total gentleman, great guy. And I actually like learned from him. He was walking around the shop just autographing everything in the shop. Guy Fieri this, Guy Fieri that, just signed his it was like a Talladega Nights. Like he even signed the baby, right? Like he was just going for it. And he at one point I brought him. I had a travel humidor with 5 American Viking cigars in it, right? My brand. Put Filthy Viking in there, a Dama Velada, Obrigado, Box Press Rebellion. Hey there, Amber. Yep. I love Guy. He was awesome to hear. Yeah. So I gave him this humidor. He's like, well, dude, you got to sign this for me. And I was like, come on, Guy. You know,
Well, Guy asked you to
Wow.
sign something for him.
Wow.
so I'm like, you don't need that from me. Like, and he's like, no, he's like, dude, you got to sign stuff. He's like, dude, he's like, stop trying to be like this, some kind of humble guy. He's like, you got to sign stuff. He's like, it shows that you put your hands on it and it shows people that you care. And I was like, whoa, like, dude, Guy has a like philosophy on this stuff. He was a very, very, very cool person to work with. And like he's walking around the Cigars HQ. He's like, dude, you need a wall for all like your celebrity stuff. So there's a cigar, I think Cigar Aficionado with him on the cover. He picks that up. He's like, oh God. So he just signs that. And it's just like, I got more Guy Fieri signed stuff in my shop now than anything else. So it was great. And I'm going to see him at PCA. I got some time. I'll probably whip out a camera at PCA and touch on what's coming from Knuckle Sandwich in that line. But, you know, again, Guy Fieri puts out a cigar, a celebrity cigar. Traditionally tragic projects are celebrity cigars. Never good, never popular. But this with Guy Fieri definitely has blown up. And it's because he gets behind a project. He does the cigar events. He comes and does my channel, stuff like that. I mean, he's truly a cigar smoker, not a celebrity who's slapped his name on a cigar.
Well, that's pretty cool. What are you smoking tonight, by the way?
I'm smoking the Plasencia Alma Forte Natural.
Nice.
And I'm pairing that with a mason jar of water.
There you go.
I have surpassed the calorie intake part of my day. So
I see.
now it's time to fast.
Well, you know, it's funny you mention that because I've heard that about him as far as doing, you know, just being an open guy, easy to get along with and stuff like that. And you see it, you kind of see it come across. And stuff like that. So tonight, our whole goal is, because I know, you know, you being such a large content creator, that when you have your show, you're kind of managing, you know, and chasing dragons and all that stuff. So we want to talk about stuff that kind of lets people know that are watching a little bit more about you, aside from the brothers of the leaf, so to speak. And
sometimes I spend so much time in the cigar world that sometimes I feel like a cigar computer. Like I don't feel like I have much of a function outside of cigars, so it can be hard to talk about other stuff. Skip says, someone posted today a cigar box that you signed. I suggest that you do more. I wouldn't mind a signed box from you next time I order one. And people do. People request on their orders. They'll say, can Tim sign the box? And I'm always happy to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe at some point there will be like a, hey, here's a special thing, and Tim's going to sign all of these. It's always felt very ostentatious to me to be like, the sex appeal of this is that I signed it. But like what Guy said made a lot of sense. Like it shows people that you care.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is great because I like being able to be a part of something where I don't have to administrate it is way relaxing for me. So thank you guys very much for having me on. I'm very grateful.
No, we you know, I mean, we just have a lot of fun doing it. But I do want to go down that rabbit hole for just a second. For some of our
You're going to spend the whole damn show talking about cigars, Dave.
No, I told him before we started that I would ask one question, and a real quick. What
you've been thinking about this one? What is it?
What do you see coming in 2024 that I think a lot of people are going to be excited about?
Well, you know, the FDA, all of their rules and regulations on cigars got shot down. Of course, the FDA appealed that decision. So the idea that the FDA will be regulating us is not gone. They were still trying to do it. And at this point, we're in a waiting period on that. So this year, cigar makers can keep making cigars, and they seem to fully intend to do that. What's new, what's next is on the forefront of the minds of every cigar maker out there. They're all thinking about these new projects. And, you know, traditional cigars, non-flavored, a lot of guys are getting really freaked out about this flavor ban. It seems like Biden, as we come into the presidential election, for whatever reason, a flavor ban seems to be at the forefront, which is like you ban flavors and menthol stuff. Like somehow it's not going to get you more votes. I don't think. I don't know. But you know, California just banned menthols. So some guys are starting to ditch their flavored stuff. But so new traditional blends. Certainly, I am working on a number of projects we're going to be part of a larger project called Daily Edition Cigars, which is sort of some of them will be special releases of limited edition projects that we might bring back. Some of them will be exclusive, brand new cigars that will be sort of exclusive to the Cigars Daily Nation, the Cigars Daily community. Where we're working with brands like Oscar Valderez, West Tampa, Diesel Cigars, Oliva Cigars. We're going to be doing a cigar that probably be its own standalone thing with Steve Saka and Dunbarton. That will probably come later this year. And I say that because he didn't tell me not to say that, and that's my so.
I remember you mentioned that last night.
Yeah, it's out there. Yeah. Anyway,
well, that's cool.
So a lot of new stuff this year, and probably even more new brands. The cool thing about the cigar industry is that the barrier to entry is relatively low. It's pretty easy and pretty affordable to start a new cigar company. So lots of new up and coming stuff, which is a great thing. Like a lot of people don't think about how many different varietals of leaf there are out there. There are so many, and there are so many unexplored parts of every blend. There are a lot of companies that blend many different blends to come up with one. So for every cigar that you're smoking, for the Nurse Dave, for that knuckle sandwich that you're smoking right there are a bunch of other blends that never got released that might be better for another project. So totally different flavors from totally different blends of all these exotic varietals that are becoming. And so a lot to look forward to.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. We just want to remind everybody in the bar that please, if you have any questions for Tim, shoot them out there. We kind of branded this show as going to be inside the mind of Tim Swanson, because when you eat, breathe, live, talk, sit in front of a computer about cigars, let's talk about other stuff. And two of the things that I've noticed by watching your live show is that certain things keep coming up over time as far as subjects. And two that I'd like to kind of delve in on is aliens. We got to talk about aliens. And we've got I knew that would get you. And the other one is the interesting hobby that you have about collecting dinosaur stuff. I mean, paleontology and stuff, that's just cool stuff. So,
outside of the cigar world, of the little bit of free time that I end up with, I like to fill it with stuff that intrigues me. I am wildly fascinated by outer space. I love outer space. As I am very intentional about trying to go outside and look up at the stars every single night. I love the whole study of space. Big, like when James Webb Space Telescope launched, I was all over that. When they put out the first images from James Webb Space Telescope, Darren says, "Oh, bringing up the alien." So, like being a big fan of outer space, I'll start a fire out here in my backyard. This is just a screen and porch, and I'll sit there and I've got a Stargazer app on my phone where I can like point it at any star and tap on the star and see how many light years away it is and how many solar masses it has and stuff. And so I'm always like brushing up on that, looking at my constellations. But aliens, bro, I mean, obviously is a hot button issue right now in our world. Like they're talking about it on Joe Rogan. They're talking about it in the press corps. They're talking about
journalists. Yeah, you bet.
So something like, and so it's either a massive distraction or something's going on, and something has been obviously going on for a very long time, and now it's time to see what that is. So I'm ready. I'm ready for your questions. I'm ready to dive in with you guys. I'm ready to have this conversation because I rarely get to have it because I rarely talk with humans. I always type with customer service people trying to solve issues on computers all day long. So,
well, Dave and I have had this conversation a lot, and being from Arizona is a hotbed, especially up where you're at. It's a huge hotbed.
Phoenix Lights.
And yeah, exactly. And to me, that old adage that says, if we're it's a huge waste of space. Now, the argument always is, well, even if there was other civilizations out there, because of the times and distances, they'd never come to see us. Well, that's based on the fact that we think that Einstein's theories on physics are correct. They may not be. I mean,
what?
Well, wait a minute. Okay, let me address this real quick, Tim. No, because the thing is, because the Einstein-Rosen bridge has been proven in physics that exists. Well, the Einstein-Rosen bridge is a wormhole. Now, you can go from one point, like if you take a piece of paper and fold it up, throw a pencil through it, that would be an Einstein-Rosen bridge, and you can get from one point to the next point instantaneously without the physical problem of time dilation coming down to where you would be 150 years old and all of your relatives would be dead by now. So I think the whole Star Trek thing, us three will probably never see that. We'll probably be long gone by then. But do I hope and dream that someday it will be there? Of course, absolutely. I think it'd be awesome.
Dude, there is a so if you look at it that way, you could say maybe Einstein was wrong about general relativity, or maybe he was right, and that's just not all that there is. Like the idea that general relativity and space as a plane and gravity, the way gravity affects that plane, and you can bend it and fold it, whatever. Maybe that's just part of it. And maybe, certainly maybe there are extra dimensional explanations to all of this. One of the big unfoldings as I watch, a lot of the interviews with David Grush and a lot of the people who are at the forefront of this conversation about aliens seems to be now statements about this. Well, these beings are extra dimensional beings. And there's some other, explanation other than traveling light years to get here or traveling through a wormhole to get here, that there's some other way that you fold space and time or another dimensional aspect of this that they can pop up through. And certainly David Heron said there's only one stable wormhole. Deep Space Nine. Not wrong.
Well, the thing, when you're talking about dimensional stuff, I've always thought about that, because have you ever been like walking through a room or walking down the street and out of the corner of your eye, you see something that you said, was that somebody that just walked by me? Was that, wait, what was that? Or your cat or your dog will stare at something knowing that something's there. I mean, there's so much we don't know that I think it would be cool. And then, you get into the whole argument. My wife and I get into the argument about who is on this planet that's a reptilian, and that whole thing.
That I was watching a video today about this. There's Tucker Carlson talked about this recently in an interview with who's this other crazy conspiracy guy that he was talking with? Morris. I forget.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know.
He's talking to him and he's saying, I've learned so much about the alien issue. And he said, I've learned things that have scared me so much that I don't even feel like I can tell my wife, is what Tucker Carlson says. And, sort of the idea behind, I think, what a lot of these guys are talking about, David Grush and some of these guys, is these creatures are dimensional, but really what remains to be seen is what is the nature of, non-human beings, right? And for a long time, it's been War of the Worlds type, like, do they come in peace, take me to your leader type thing, or do they come here to conquer us? And only now are we really talking about the possibility of other intentions for being here. And now a couple of the ones that I've heard that I find very fascinating, as far as like theories for, extraterrestrial intentions, is one of them is that these extra dimensional beings have this extra dimensional energy that humans put out, which basically they feed off of, and we're part of the food chain. And these extra dimensional beings may very well just be lizard people, right? Like lizard humanoid beings that feed off this type of energy that we put off. So we're part of the food chain and we don't even know it. That's one thing I've heard. The other thing I've heard.
So basically that would make us, if you're old enough to remember, that would make us the pecan logs of the Stuckies of the universe. They just come and eat us.
Yes. Yeah. But eating like an energy we put off, or our vibes. The scary one is if they eat the energy that we put off where we're frustrated, angry, or in pain, then they would be leading our lives to that, which certainly seems to be what all of us have plenty of in our lives, right? Frustration, pain, fear, anxiety. The other one that I've heard I thought was very fascinating came out of a guy who read a CIA document talking about these aliens, that they are extra dimensional and that there's another plane, and that this plane is basically a spiritual plane, right? And then there's a physical plane, and these planes aren't connected. And that life, sentient, conscious life, creates a connection between these planes. And so that's sort of what a being with a spirit is. And that for these interdimensional beings, the connection between the spiritual plane and the whatever physical plane is a good thing. So they're here sort of generally in support of the idea of life, and they don't more or less care about the well-being of an individual. So abducting you and putting a probe in your ass wouldn't be outside of their like purview. But in general, if a nuclear bomb went off and wiped out, you know, 1 million people, they wouldn't really want that. And so maybe they showed up around the time that nuclear bombs went out. So there's still a lot of different like swirling ideas about what is the intention of non-human life that you don't know. And like, and at that point, it's all still just hearsay. But certainly there seems to be something. I mean,
Well,
go ahead.
from my standpoint, spending my career in the Air Force, that, you know, a lot of because the argument is what we're seeing as quote unquote UFOs or whatever they're calling them now, is some of it is our technology that we just haven't caught up to yet. Because some of the stuff, for instance, the SR-71, I mean, it took its first flight way back, and so there's all kinds of stuff that we're working on now, and that would blow our minds, I'm sure.
Well, I think that the consensus is that a lot of these UAP flying things, that at this point, like a lot of people think Raytheon and Lockheed Martin have them. They've whatever it is, they figured it out at Area 51 over the last 6 or 7 decades, and now they're making them. And at some point, that probably be what you'd hear. Like they're like, oh yeah, like, and that the reason that we can't know about this is because it's driven by a energy that would disrupt the energy economy in the world to the degree that it would be bad for humanity, right? Anti-gravity, free energy, easy to generate energy that would make your fossil fuels, your oil, your coal, and even your solar and wind just like pointless and destroy whole industries. So,
well, I mean, you can argue that about when Tesla died. It's amazing how the FBI came in and just went nuts and confiscated all of his stuff because he had plans for free energy. Free energy everywhere. So anyhow, him and I could go. You better jump in here while you can.
Well, I think that I've told my partner Jim this at Cigars Daily more than a few times, and I'll read P beats real quick. Do you think that Benito Mussolini formation of the Giovannetti RS-33 proves a UFO crashed in Italy in June 13th, 1933, leadership of the U.S. State Department? I don't know what that is, so that would be something. This is what I tell my partner all the time. I say this to him specifically about medicine, but I think that about energy, this will be true. We all have this perception that we live in a time, the most advanced time in human history, right? Like we're talking to each other via video, and we're all in different places. Like we're never able to do this before as human beings. I still think, though, that in the future, humanity, if we survive, nuclear bombs and AI and all the crap that's there now, I think humanity will look back historically on this as a dark ages of medicine and a dark ages of energy because of how it's all so motivated by money and control. And that if there's a way for people to move past that you eventually reach a point where energy is more or less available and more or less not used to control people, and medicine is created and distributed in a way that's preventative and actually helpful, right? Like all these things that are obviously good, like that we start doing those as people, that people will look back on now and be like, oh my gosh, like what people had to go through to get basic medical care. The fact that people had to like figure out if they could afford groceries or to pay their energy bill is just, it'll be beyond their thinking. I really think that's a future thing.
Well, and I would imagine also, all of us came from a fairly Christian background, and I know in Dave's case, your dad was a minister, and Tim, you were all about that. So did you ever have that conflict of saying, as Christians, what we're taught, and then when we start delving into this other realm, as a Catholic, of course, we're paid to be guilty. That's basically what we're charged to do. So did that conflict ever come up in your mind, or did you just say, no, I'm going to let things expand and let me investigate and look at all different things?
Yeah, no, that's like that is that. Yeah, I'm just going to let things expand. I'm just going to let this open up, and I'm just going to be open to sort of what I see and what I learn, and know the first thing and the foremost thing, which is that like everything I've said tonight is all like 100% speculative.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't like authentically where we've come to, and what got everybody so hot and bothered is a lot of could be, might be, maybe someday, like things that aren't actual. We don't actually have anything. We have a little bit of grainy footage of what we call UAPs, and that's really it. You know, so at this point, like already, for as far as I go with stuff like the Bible, I already hold the Bible out with an open hand, and I do so faithfully because in my mind, the Bible, if as a Christian, you might say the Bible is the inerrant word of God without error, right? A perfect word of God. In order for that to be true, it has to be able to withstand anything that anyone can throw at it. And in my opinion, it has for 2,000 years as a historical document, as a literary document, the poetry that's in it, all the different types of writings. And so I sort of hold it out and be like, this has stood up against everything. It still can. So question it, poke at it, prod at it, criticize it, do whatever you want to it. Like it's here for the taking. And
at the end of the day, it's going to be there.
Yeah, and so far, nothing has come close to producing anything that I would call a credible alternative view of anything.
Well, and the thing is, being brought up Catholic and having relatives that were in the clergy, obviously, there's always been that argument that the technology, aliens, extraterrestrial, and Christianity conflict, but actually they don't. And to me, what proves that is the Vatican has one of the largest. They have cardinals that are astronomers. They own one of the largest telescopes in the world, sitting right down the street from us in Safford. So, to me, it can mesh. Whether we'll ever, whether we'll see that or not, who knows? But it's still based on faith. In a way. If you have that type of thing, Dave, you better say something.
Dave's reflecting.
He is.
Well, no, it's interesting because that usually when you're talking about aliens, right, you get the whole, you get a faction of people that we don't understand how something could have happened, so it's easy for them to tag it onto aliens, right? Like the pyramids and how are they made and all that. But that just goes back to like, that's not fair, right? If you don't understand it, that doesn't mean that you just throw some easy explanation on it and then that's it. But usually the two counterpoints are what you guys started with is like it's a big waste of space, right? There's so many stars, so many solar systems, all this stuff. There's got to be another one somewhere that had life evolve or whatever on it, right? So there's no way that we could be the only living things in the entire universe. But the flip side of that is that for billions of years of the Earth history, the living stuff on here hasn't been thinking or hasn't been able to use tools and all that stuff. And, regardless of how egotistical one might be, humans won't be around for billions of years, right? I mean, I get you could argue that maybe we'll evolve into something else that sticks around, but that's the counterpoint, right? Is that the age of the universe, in the little flash that humans have been around, that whatever is going to make contact with us has to be here at the same time in that little flash of time, right? So I'm curious what you think. I mean, so the other one is, right, the universe is so big, what are the chances of us crossing paths? And that's where you get into wormholes and all that stuff. So you could maybe agree that, but I think the time thing is really what gets me hung up. Over billions of years, humans have been, tens of thousands, around, how do you assume that somebody else is around at the same time to make contact?
So, like, if I think first you have to start off with some foundations, right? For what we're talking about. The first foundation is, what do we know that's not a theory? Evolution is a theory. We sort of think that evolution is how things have happened based on the evidence that we have. And what we have is a lot of evidence. And the danger that I hear you talking about is like a lot of people, are jumping to these conclusions. They just call it aliens. They just say, "Oh yeah, that must be aliens." They just assign it to something, right? That's what you're saying,
right?
That What do we know? Well, the issue is that you end up with a bowl of evidence. Okay, and the evidence that we have in front of us is all that we've seen. There's dinosaur bones in the ground. There's stars in the sky. They're millions of light years away, yet that light has traveled here to the Earth. That seems like a piece of evidence. But the scientific process is about taking the evidence and observing without inference, at least at first.
Yeah.
You can come with a hypothesis, with an experiment, then you make all of your observations without any inference. You say, oh, this is doing this without any because. And so if I look, say, what do we know? Like, what do we fundamentally actually know beyond a shadow of a doubt that's not a theory? There's not much. There isn't much. Like, is the Earth billions of years old? Seems that way. It very much seems that way. Is the Earth 6,000 years old? There's actually this really, really great docu-series on Amazon that I've watched through that I'm a big fan of. It's called Is Genesis History?
Mm-hmm.
And it is the first time I've ever seen a well-presented layout of the creationist scientific viewpoint. And what they say is that, the mainstream science, evolutionary science, says that the key ingredient to all existence is time. In order for all of this to have happened, there has to have been these massively huge, great swaths of time for galaxies to form and stars to form and planets to form and then life to form on those planets and then life to evolve into what we have now. But without all that time, none of those things are even remotely possible. And in creation, the Bible is just like craps it out in chapter 1. It's just like God said this and God said this. And after a week, he was like, I'm going to take a day and, have a course or something like that. But then they go back and they defend it. And there's some really amazing evidence in there about what they call catastrophic events. And in the show, it's fascinating show. You should watch it, even if you don't have any sort of faith or anything like that. They defend the idea that catastrophic events can account for many of the things that evolution points out. And there's in one of the first episodes, they talk about one of the greatest events that's happened in your guys' lifetime, not even my lifetime, which is the eruption of Mount St. Helens. Was that in my lifetime? Was that 89? Was that 80 or 89?
80s.
80s, yeah. It was in the 80s, yeah.
I was in the 80s too. Me and Mount St. Helens. We both come from the same generation. But basically, Mount St. Helens erupts in several different stages and over a period of a few days. And then there's massive rain. There's, the first stage, there's a bunch of lava and magma, and then there's raining ash and all kinds of stuff. And then it rains. And they go back to Mount St. Helens within days after the eruption. And down the side of Mount St. Helens, what's carved are canyons 40, 50, 60 feet deep with perfect layers of strata in them, just like the Grand Canyon. And they've been formed within a few days. They talk about how mud flows can reshape the face of the earth, how giant floating moss beds can, I can go on forever and ever, but to answer your question, Dave, I think the big thing, May 18th, 1980, thank you. I think the big thing is like, what do we really know? And it goes back to the whole alien thing. Like, what do we really know? Well, authentically with the alien thing right now, we don't really know anything. Sure. And like, when it comes to evolution, I'll give it to you. Like the evolution thing, the millions and billions of years, the universe is whatever, 13.8 billion years old, but still somehow there's a star called Methuselah that's older than that. Doesn't matter. We'll just look past that, like all scientists have to, right? It's somehow, if we want to go through and believe all of that, you still have to remember this. And this is a key principle for me. There was a time in human history where every living, breathing person, including every scientist on the planet, believed that the earth was flat. And it just took one guy to come along and be like, I don't think the earth is flat because it's round. And then they tried to kill him. And like with science, this is what you have to do. Scientifically, you cannot come along and just say X is not true. You can't just come along and say evolution is not true. I don't believe evolution. You have to say evolution is not true as a theory because this other theory actually explains everything much better. And that's what creationism is a contender for, secular science. And those are really the only two things we have.
No, and I like this conversation better because you are saying like I think this or I like the thought of this versus like I'm saying, so this is, it's interesting because when Dave said, you're very much into the aliens, I thought, you're going to say that, they definitely landed and we got the ships and all this stuff, but it's not that's like, this makes sense, or I like to think about this, or I'd like to know more about that, which is totally different. And I agree. Like you said, I've always thought that, when we were bloodletting for curing diseases, they thought that was the right thing to do and the best thing you can do. And you're always going to be learning. And so even the theories of, and I don't want to get farther into this because I've got a very non-cigar topic separate from this I want to hear from you about. But, just the whole idea of, the carbon dating and all that stuff that we base all this on, who knows, 100 years from now, that could be disproven and something else. But like you said, it's looking at what does it explain now and just say, for now, this is what makes sense to me.
The carbon dating, interesting. They talk about this in the Is Genesis History thing, which is, carbon dating has been a contentious one even in secular science, even secular scientists who are a little iffy on the carbon dating thing. But the way carbon dating works is that carbon molecules from the earth will rise up into the atmosphere where they get radiated by the sun. They become called what's a carbon-19 molecule. Right. Then they rain back down on the earth and they sort of rest on everything with radiation. And then when stuff gets covered up, that radiation decays. And so what they do is they measure the decay of that radiation, and that's how they tell how old things are. The only real problem with that is that, and this is what they say in the program. I'm not a scientist, but what they say is that radiation has a shelf life of about 10,000 years. So if you carbon date something and you're like, oh, it's 37 million years old, like what's the degree of accuracy even on that, And there are other interesting things with, fossils and stuff, like dinosaurs who are buried like in the earth like this, and their body goes through many layers of strata. So basically you have a dinosaur sticking out of the ground for like 3 million years until it covers up and you got a perfect skeleton. There's a lot of like little holes in these theories. And what's crazy is with a lot of the modern scientists, if you go after this stuff, they get they seem to get very hostile very quickly. And you hear about this a lot from guys like, have you guys seen on Netflix, the Ancient Civilizations guy?
Oh yeah.
He's done Joe Rogan's podcast. His whole theory is that human civilization is much older than we think it is. Like in our history, it goes back, like recorded history goes back, whatever, 6,000 years. But really, he's talking about advanced human civilizations that existed 12,000 years ago, and like all the evidence around the world for that. But when you start to say stuff like that, and it goes against sort of the modern scientific view of the world, the worldview, that people get really, really hostile.
Well, a perfect example of that, to speak what you and Dave were just talking about, when Stephen Hawking challenged Einstein's theory, he got hammered. He got hammered and hammered and hammered. And with theoretical physics, like you're saying, the body of evidence shows this, but 100,000 years from now, they may look back and say, well, these guys were like beating on a rock,
right.
We don't know that,
or like they knew about the theory of relativity, but they didn't know about these other 5 things that, also are totally valid. Totally, they was very sweet. They had the theory of relativity. They really thought they had it figured out.
Wasn't that cute?
That's adorable. We teach that stuff in kindergarten now.
Well, and the thing is, and it's funny how you guys both approach that. Where I am, born in the '60s. So the space program and Star Trek and all these things were basically part of me growing up. And the reason I always stick towards the Star Trek philosophy is when you look at some of the items that were in Star Trek that later on were the incentive for some of the things we have now. The flip phone is a perfect example of it. So I would like to believe that someday we will venture out and we will find those other civilizations. Will it happen? I don't know. It'd be kind of cool if they did.
Can I ask that you don't wear skin tight clothing though, if we get to that point?
Who, me?
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
A leotard, like
the whole Star Trek
thing.
Yeah.
Well, no, but see, I'm gonna be evolved. I'm gonna be so evolved.
We'll all be specimens.
I won't have a body, and I'll invade your brain.
I'm going Dalek style. All right, mine's going to flare out at the bottom, and it's going to have a filter sticking out the front. That's the only way to do it.
Well, the argument can be made about alien life being on this planet is if you look at sea life. To me is fascinating. You look at an octopus, and they've got a brain in every single tentacle. Okay, right. And here we are, meat sacks, talking on this, and these guys have a brain in every single arm. Come on.
But did they invent Atari? No. No. Can we since we have Tim here, can we do a cigar question? And then I got something.
Sure. Yeah, this is from.
You want to read it?
I'll read it. Yeah. Well, I know, Tim. It's hard. Tim, you've gone over cigar wrappers relating to beers and how it's like light to dark beer last night. Do different types of wrappers have typical flavors associated with them, i.e. Connecticut is earthy, is chocolate? Can you give a brief overview of the different type of wrapper flavors?
Yeah, okay, I'll do my best, but there isn't a solid set. I mean, a lot of cigars are blended for flavor around the wrapper contribution is giving the cigar the character of its flavor, but not all of them are. So Connecticut is typically milder, and I'd say the flavor that is most associated with most Connecticut cigars is cedar. People talk about a lot of cedar with Connecticut. Cameroon is typically considered to be earthy, a little bit sweet. Habanos, generally speaking, are referred to by people as being like nutty, oftentimes. You start talking about darker Maduro wrappers and broadleaf and stuff. You start to talk about sometimes chocolatey or leathery notes. And but there's no hard fast rules with cigar wrappers at all. Like there's no like you can make a Connecticut that's really spicy, right? Like you can make a broadleaf that is just chocolatey, or you can make a broadleaf that's not chocolatey at all, and it's very peppery and it's very spicy and it's very leathery. So, I like to talk about this with Sumatra wrappers. One of my favorite cigars that I've got in my bag, just in case our conversation runs long tonight. I just brought a few extras. But this cigar right here is the Hoyo Dark Sumatra. Normally, Sumatra, like an Indonesian type wrapper, is more the color of Habano and more medium strength and more earthy. But that dark Sumatra is very dark. It's still very smooth, but it's got some really nice leather to it. So and sweetness as well. I think that sweetness with a lot of wrappers comes with quality. And there's, again, no hard, fast rules, but sort of generalities you can speak in.
Great. Can you introduce us to the pooch?
All right. This is my dog, Ellie.
Look at.
She's my baby girlfriend. And then this is Bruno. Bruno is Ellie's pup. And I've got two more running around here. We have 4 dogs, which is too many. That's too many dogs.
That's a lot of poop.
All of them are poodles, some variation of poodle. Ellie is the only one who's a standard poodle. She's a straight up 100% poodle. The rest of them have got some other kind of breed in them.
Yeah. All right. So this year, is it last year? You had your first grandchild. Yes.
Yes. It was 5 weeks ago.
5 weeks ago. So have you already? I'm curious. I've got a theory about this, but everybody says grandparents treat their grandchildren way different than their own kids. Has that already kind of hit you, the mind shift change?
Yeah.
Or what do you think about that?
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's still a baby. So, and I'm still parenting. So my son is 11 years old. So I still think about a lot of stuff from the parent perspective. Hey, I'm doing something. All right. They don't care. I still think from the parent perspective in a really big way. And right now, my kids are 11, 18, and 25. And
there's a spread.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As with a lot of the more recent generations, younger generations are having a hard time figuring things out. Everything's more expensive. You guys can take bets on this fight, by the way.
I'm putting my money on Ellie. She's the eldest.
Yeah. Hey. We're not going to turn it into a Michael Vick type thing, but they're just it's all. So, hold on, I'm going to throw them out of here real quick.
All right. And also, while Tim's taking care of the herd, if you have any questions other than that, we wanted to give Tim a chance to talk about stuff other than cigars because that's what he does every day of his life.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Because I was thinking, when we have people with younger kids and stuff like that, whatever struggle you're overcoming, like technology, right, keeps evolving. Whatever struggle you have with your kids right then and there is like the worst thing. It's the most important thing. And as they grow older, you realize the consequences get bigger. The problems have bigger outcomes. And you're like, oh, that crap I was worried about 5 years ago. If that was the only thing I had to worry about.
Right.
And so I imagine after our kids are gone, right, and you have grandkids, you realize all that little stuff doesn't matter anymore. And that's why grandparents are probably just like happy and let's just have fun and let's buy you stuff because like all of this stuff your parents are worried about, forget about it.
But see, go ahead. Just real quick, our audience is so smart that we have now figured out this. Frank Feeney says the dogs are barking at interdimensional beings which only animals can see. That's probably true.
Could be.
Things that we can't.
Exactly.
With the grandparent thing, there's two things that stand out to me now. The first thing is that my oldest daughter, I was talking to her and she had her baby and I said, don't worry, you're going to mess her up. Because that's what all parents do. You just jack up your kids. And I say that to her, hopefully to help her let her off the hook for things that I never let myself off for. And so, there is an aspect of forgiving yourself for how dumb you are as a young parent. And the other side of it is that it's gotten me into a really new mode of thinking. And I'll kill your viewership if I talk about this, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's from the Bible. It's in Proverbs. And it says essentially, a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Well, now my child has a child. And, I've been working and scrapping and scrounging to save and thinking about retirement. And my whole thinking about retirement savings my whole life has been, how am I going to save enough money so that when I retire, I can do whatever the hell I want? And I'm like imagining myself, I'm on the beach somewhere. I'm thinking about someday I'm in Italy. I'm in a little villa. I'm back on Santorini and, kicking my feet up and having a good time with a Mai Tai or whatever. And they don't have Mai Tais in Santorini, but whatever they have in Santorini. And now I'm really thinking about it from the perspective of, a while back my wife and I did a trust. And in that trust, you have to decide everything. Like if you both, die in a plane crash, what's going to happen to your money? How's it going to get distributed to your kids? And then I'm thinking about God, my kids are going to waste all my money. They don't know anything. They're all too young and dumb to know anything at all. Dear God, that's the most horrifying thing. And now it's okay, so new goal for me. If I want to be wise and I want to leave an inheritance for my children's children, what does that require? And it requires me to be currently constantly engaged with my kids, regardless of whether it's my 11-year-old son or my 18-year-old daughter or my 25-year-old daughter, at the degree that we're talking about the challenging parts of life, so that they are leading wise lives, so that when my granddaughter Lila is getting older, her mom can teach her, and so that she can stand to benefit from the hard work that I'm doing now. That is a lot of my focus. And it's been really cool. I talk about this stuff nonstop with my 11-year-old son, who currently has more money saved than most Americans. And he's a very impressive young man. Cool. And even to that degree,
except for one small item, which we won't mention. Guess what?
What did he have?
The chicken butt.
Chicken butt. Damn butt. God, it gets me every time. He's a smart kid. Most recently he wanted to buy an electric scooter. And so I had challenged him. I said, he's like, Dad, should I do it? Is this smart? I don't think you think it's smart. I'm not going to do it. Wow. I want to do it smart. And then I said, no. You've done a lot of saving. You've done really good. I said, let's do this. If you want the electric scooter, treat yourself to 30 days of wanting it. Take that 30 days and go look at them and research them and figure out which is the best one to get. And if at the end of 30 days you still want it, then it's not a flashy bauble a lot of the Pokemon cards you've got or a lot of video game stuff you got. Then it's something you actually really wanted. And so he's practicing that now. But yeah, that's how being a grandparent has really readjusted my focus. And
well, and two things about that is that transcends into adulthood, because I don't know if you know this, but Dave knows it. I am a monstrous watch collector. And what I do is I'll look at a watch. Now, my 30 days has usually been truncated just a little bit. But what you said about Proverbs, when it talks about leave an inheritance, I think inheritance cannot always be just from a monetary standpoint. I think inheritance can be the great knowledge that you had going through whatever struggles and tribulations you have, and you give that knowledge to them as an inheritance. Therefore, they can continue passing that along to their children as well.
You're 100% right about that. I just think about money because I think I'm a little autistic, and I obsessively count, and I obsessively do things like I'm very numbers based in my mind. So money makes the most sense to me. But you're right. Wisdom. I think wisdom is more valuable than money. More valuable than money is discipline by like a lot. Personal discipline. My son hates it, but twice a week we go to the boxing gym, and I make him ride his bike there, and I run. So we leave the house, and I run to the boxing gym, and then we work out there for an hour, and then we run and bike home. And he's like, "Can we drive to the gym today?" I'm like, "No, discipline. We have to be disciplined. Let's get going. Go, go, go."
That brings it, that because I know one of your passions is boxing, and I know that some people probably that are listening just said, "Well, wait a minute, whoa. You smoke cigars, you box, and you run to the gym." So I'm sure people are going, "Wait a minute." They're scratching their head going, "Wait a minute, that's smoking a cigar." But the philosophy on that is that it's not like a cigarette.
Yeah, I'm not inhaling it.
Right.
I mean, my best time on a mile is not under 8 minutes, but it's like 8.5 minutes. And I got a fight coming up on March 9th. Should be March 9th. Should be my next fight. He's got a question for you, Dave.
Let's hear about your fight, though. I want to know. Can we watch this fight somewhere?
Yeah, we'll get to that, but we're talking about watches here.
What? Excuse me.
Wait a minute.
Priorities.
Exactly. I used to work at a watch department in a larger jewelry store and love watches. What is your favorite watch and watch that you own and want?
Wait, real quick, Dave, while you answer that, because I know nothing about watches. I'm going to go grab some more water. Just one second.
All right, you bet. All right, take your minute. Well, Dave knows my watch collection, so there's not a lot of watches left.
Can I guess? What's the one that you own?
My favorite watch.
Wait, can I guess?
You sure can.
Right. So because of I'm not gonna guess right. Because your favorite one, because you're very into history, right, and meaningfulness and all this stuff.
You got it.
Because I would think just by beauty, it might be the newest one, right? The Grand Seiko. But in terms of meaningfulness, isn't your Pan Omega that had some history to it, or your Pan Am?
Well, there's two. There's three. So to answer Skip's question, my favorite watch is my 1961 Omega Constellation Pan, and the reason why it's my favorite is because my wife gave it to me, and that means more than anything to me. However, that being said, my favorite watch in my collection, due to the historical aspects of the fact that it was the first watch worn on the moon, it was the first watch that was picked by NASA to be their official watch, is my Omega Speedmaster. Now, for the watch that I want is a mist green Rolex Skydweller. But that's never going to happen, because if I was to buy that, I'd be living in a shed.
With the mist green Rolex Skydweller.
Well, right.
But and to speak real quick about the retirement thing, I don't know if you know, but I'm on retirement number 3. I retired from the Air Force, went into the financial services business and the insurance business, sold my agency, figured at that time I was 47, I was done. And 2 weeks later, I said, I can't be retired. This is boring. Now, my wife was still working at the time. And then I had this crazy idea. And I said, you know what, honey? As a little kid, I always remember going to the barbershop with my dad. I'm going to become a barber. And my wife looked at me and said, yep, it happened. He finally had a stroke. And, and I've been doing that ever since. And I'll tell you what, I love it. I'm the type that I doubt I will ever. And I get the funny feeling, though, Tim, knowing your work ethic, that you'll always be dabbling in something. because I don't picture, at least I'm that way. I don't think I'll ever fully 100% retire. I just don't
No.
think I will.
Never. I talk about feet on a beach somewhere, but you can do that for only so many days before you start to lose your mind.
Now, Dave, on the other hand, he's going to own a cruise ship and just cruise around the world all day.
I'd love it. I would love it.
Own a
Yeah, no,
cruise.
I tell you, my dream is to get hurt just enough to be on disability so I don't have to work. That's my retirement plan. But no, since Tim mentioned the whole Santorini and stuff, quick question: what's your favorite vacation spot you've been to?
Oh, there you go.
Dude, I've been very fortunate to see. I've seen a lot of the world, and that's really hard to say because there are a lot of parts of the world that are very beautiful for very different reasons. Very thankful that I got to go to Israel with my wife in 2011. Certainly wouldn't want to go right now. Greece, Egypt, a lot of Southeast Asia. Spent a semester in India, semester in Scotland. When I was in college, I toured with a band in Cambodia, and a number of other places. But I don't know which one I would pick honestly to go back to. I'm such a I guess have that heart for exploring. I would always want to go somewhere I've never been before. So I don't know even if I could go anywhere tomorrow. I don't know where I would even go. I don't even Iceland, Greenland. Go see that volcano blowing up.
Dave just came back from Iceland not too long ago.
Yeah, last summer. Yeah, we did a cruise up to Iceland. That's pretty cool. Totally different landscape than anywhere else.
Right. That would be great.
Yeah.
Now, for me, talking about vacation stuff, very simple. If it was affordable and doable, orbit. I want to see the planet from up there.
My wife says no, but my oldest daughter, who just had my first grandbaby, her and I are buddies on that. We both want to do that. We're both in.
Yeah. It just, to me, that would, from a faith standpoint, that would just, I don't know. It would just be an incredible thing to just see the earth from beneath you. Now, I know I can go to Walt Disney World and see it on a screen, but that's a little bit different.
It's pretty much, there's less puke involved if you do it that way.
I really wanted to go to the moon until I learned what it's like to go to the moon. And now I really don't want to go to the moon at all.
The diaper thing, is that what gets you?
No, it's, if you go to the moon, you're going to be inside the whole time. But even if you do go outside in a spacesuit around the moon doesn't have the atmosphere that Earth does, right? So it doesn't have any wind. So there's nothing to break down the different sizes of sediment that there are, the sand, the stones, the pebbles. So even the moon dust is sharp. So the guys who went to the moon, it got all over their suits and it got all inside. And they said it's itchy and it gets all over your skin and it makes you scratch and it's just really, really unpleasant.
Yeah, I think Buzz Aldrin said it. He said, take a bunch of fiberglass insulation, grind it up, put it in a bucket, and jump in it.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like.
Awesome.
Yeah. Plus, the thing is with the spacesuits, they haven't figured out a rabbit air version of a spacesuit, so you couldn't have a.
You just can't smoke at the moon. Well, Tim, on the pre-show though, you brought up your boxing. You promised you'd tell us the story about how you got into boxing.
Yeah, I've been boxing for like 16 years, and I love it. I love the sport, and I started boxing when I was 22, and I was reading a book called Wild at Heart by John Eldridge, and it was talking about how man has a warring heart. We have a heart for war, and we battle for things. It's why every man longs to have a woman's heart to conquer, longs to have property to have dominion over, and longs to have all these. And in the book, it says it's the reason that men box. And my dad always taught me not to fight unless I absolutely had to. He said it just wasn't worth it. And that made a lot of sense to me. When I was in school, I never fought. Even when the opportunity came up, I never fought anyone. It just didn't seem worth it. Detention and suspension from school was always, that was like, why would I even, what do I stand to gain here? But then I'm 22 and I'm like, I don't even know if I could win a fight. And so I started boxing at a gym in one of the worst parts of Phoenix. Currently, it's our Skid Row in Phoenix. We have a Skid Row. We're like 6 square blocks of homelessness.
Is that down where where the big red, that restaurant, the Red, down on 51st
like
Street down
it's
there
like
by the
Washington,
airport, right?
basically Washington and Central, like down
Okay.
in that area.
Yeah.
And there was a gym down there at that time with this crazy old man named Joe Diaz. He was the guy that owned the gym, and he was just nuts. He walked around the gym. I'd go at like 5 o'clock in the morning because I was in college, and I'd drive down there and I'd go in the gym, and he was always wearing his little short shorts and like a shirt, and he had a big fat belly, and he'd walk around. He was like Italian, like he's from New York or whatever, and he'd walk around, and he had a revolver sticking out of his pocket every day, and he would shave in the full length mirrors. He would just put the shaving cream all over his face, and I'd be doing whatever he taught me to do, and everything he taught me to do was terrible for your body. I mean, just like that, like stuff they did in the 50s that now they've got way better ways of doing it. But I'm doing what he's doing, and he would just be shaving in the mirror. And he'd be like, "You're doing it wrong, Tim. Breathe through your nose. Breathe through your nose. You're doing it wrong." And but that was where I really got my first chance to start sparring, and then I got to start doing some fights. I have 5 fights, and I've won 3 of those fights. So if I get another fight, that would be nice. Although now I fight as what's called a geriatric fighter. So I don't know what that means, but I have to get.
But you said you've got a fight coming up March 8th?
March 9th. There are fights, and I can fight if I can get matched with a fighter, and that's the big thing. Like, you got to find somebody who's got a similar number of fights and a similar weight, obviously, and like you got to get matched up. There's not always a match, and so if there is one and I get to fight, I would like to. But I'll be honest. People talk about the cigars and the fitness thing, and I don't see them as mutually exclusive. Like, I smoke cigars all day long, every day, and I'm literally in the best physical fitness I've ever been in my life. Doesn't mean that cigars are good for me at all, like even a little bit. But it doesn't seem to cost me a ton of stamina, which I seem to have more of now at 39 than I did at 25.
Right. So, well, back to, and this is why we're so good at bringing things together, is the fact that we know that aliens exist because aliens destroyed the dinosaurs, which led Tim to collect dinosaur bones. See, it's all
the same. It's all
together.
So speak on that for just a few minutes, if you wouldn't mind, Tim, about what got you into the collection of dinosaur type bones and stuff like that. Was it the history? Was it just were you a big dinosaur kid when you were a kid?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like big. Like the first movie I ever went to was A Land Before Time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on my birthday. And my parents gave me a dinosaur toy afterwards that I'll never forget. It was a Stegosaurus. It was like the best day of my life. But, for me, it's really about outside of the working day, which is most of my day. I have very little time to just sit and do what I love to do. And just thinking about stuff like space and dinosaurs and where do we come from and where are we going is a lot of what I do. And I forget what put me on it at one point, but I was thinking about dinosaurs and dinosaur. I was doing some research and I found a place where you could get the dinosaur fossils. Obviously, if you're going to be a real dinosaur bone collector, you're going to go dig them up. That's what I think it's like. I think that in the dinosaur fossil collecting society, if you just buy all your fossils, you're seen more or less as a cigar smoker who like just smokes the gas station stuff. Maybe like you don't get as much respect as the guys who dig up their own. But I buy my fossils, and I got just a collection that I like a lot, and I look at it. I did the singular nerdiest thing I've ever done in my entire life with my dinosaur fossil collection. I've got them inside. I have Triceratops teeth. I have Velociraptor teeth, Megalodon. I have a T-Rex tooth, a Spinosaurus tooth, some really big ones. But then I wanted to put little display cards next to them. But all the display cards, I couldn't put enough information on the display cards. So I made QR codes that you can scan to go to I made a website with a web page about every dinosaur fossil with like a video and like a size comparison to a human and info about the fossil. It was like the nerdiest thing I've ever done in my life. And since I have no friends, I've never actually shown it like to anyone. Like people come over like, you could scan the QR codes if you want. And they're like, no, I'm good. I'm like, well, that's good for me. Like, get your phone out right now and scan the damn code. Like,
And your wife's next up. Would you just scan one? Could you make him happy?
Yeah, just scan one, please. Just keep him happy. Well, that right there answers so many questions why you're one of the greatest content providers on the interwebs right now, is because of that level of detail. But I know that Tig Lily had a question that we talked about earlier. And this goes to the dinosaur and stuff. Do you think currently anywhere on this planet there are any remnants of actual dinosaurs that are still living that we have not discovered? You know, cryptozoology, and she asked specifically about the megalodon.
yeah, I mean, the ocean is the most unexplored part of our Earth, of our planet, and I think that we find new stuff there all the time. Like, do I think there's a megalodon swimming around? I don't know, maybe, but we've found in the last 3 years we found a prehistoric fish that we've previously had fossils of, only had fossils, and we found this fish swimming around. So, like, yeah, I think there's still a lot to be discovered. But more interestingly than that is these scientists who are going to bring back the woolly mammoth. Have you guys seen that?
Yes. They found that.
What are they going to do?
Dino DNA, and they're going to Jurassic Park it. And
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that baby mammoth that they found that was almost in perfect shape in the permafrost, and they've been able to extract DNA and the whole. Yeah, it makes you wonder. I mean, well, you know, we can get into this whole AI thing. You look at Terminator, then you see AI. You look at Jurassic Park, and now we're going to have a woolly mammoth cruising around.
Yeah.
You know, good and bad.
Tim, you mentioned about digging them up. Can that be your next trip? Do they do that? You can do a tour to go somewhere and try to dig up a fossil?
Yes, they do. And like, there's no guarantee that you get get, you know, like I've always been a big fan of artifacts and of historical memorabilia. You know, when I went to Israel, I got haven't we seen this movie before? Yeah, we have. We're remaking them.
They didn't think if they should.
The next thing you're going to see is that they're going to be like, scientists have figured out a way to make a Freddy Krueger, and I think that's a good idea. You know, they're going to go for it.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah. So when I went to Israel, we literally went to a historic dig site, and we're walking around with the tour group around this historic place, and I'm there with my wife and my sister and her husband and my parents, and they're like, yeah, we dig up stuff here all the time, but you very rarely find anything, really substantial, usually pieces of pottery, but you don't find anything like a coin or anything like that. And I kid you not, my mom's standing there and she looks around and she looks down and she reaches down and she picks up a coin, a 2,000-year-old coin off the ground. She goes, like this? And she hits the guy and he's like, oh my God, like, what in the hell is this? Like, no one ever does this.
Wow.
But on that trip, I bought, I got a little clay lamp, like an oil lamp that was excavated from 2,000 years ago. This is a boutique shop that sells antiquities that essentially the museums say, we don't need these. We got enough of this. We don't need more of these. So they'll sell them to tourists. So I got a lamp. And then I bought my wife a ring that fit her just perfectly, that had the original stone in it that was found around Jerusalem and estimated to be from about 2,000 years ago, roughly around the time Jesus lived. So it's like, that stuff to me is so freaking cool. And
I think
goes right into that.
It's the tactile feel. Like, I collect NASA's type stuff. And one of my most prized possessions is the patches that were on the flight suits were what they call a beta cloth. And I've got a flown beta cloth that actually was on the surface of the moon. And it's just that tactile feel of saying, God, this was there,
Yeah.
And like Dave, and we talked about earlier before the show about the gem show that they have and all the fossils and stuff like that. And I was able to get Dave and myself some meteorites, and just to know, to think about the journey of where this thing was and came. And that to me is worth so much. It really
absolutely is. Yeah. The history there, and the opportunity to sit and learn and study about something that you didn't know, and you learn stuff about it, gives it all that much more meaning when it's in your hand. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I one thing that happened, Tim, and I have to thank you about this entire hour and 15 minutes so far, we have not spoken once.
What about food?
That's
Dave,
where I was going. We got to
come
talk
on now.
about food. So, Tim, if you were to pick, because I know that your diet, I know that your dietary stuff has changed, and we've talked
Yeah.
about that on the last
It's
show.
tofu and spinach. That's what he eats.
No, if you could pick your favorite absolute meal, just
Yeah.
absolutely favorite meal, from appetizer all the way through, what would it be?
The whole meal.
Yeah.
It would be a perfectly cooked steak with blue cheese on it,
Oh,
and that would basically be it.
that it.
And
Okay,
if,
and when
and
you
if I'm
said-
gonna if I'm
when
gonna
you said
go way
blue-
off the rails, then there
Uh-huh.
would be a piece of cheesecake at the end.
There you go. When you said blue cheese, I'm waiting for somebody's comment. Tig Lily should be bringing a comment about blue cheese in here any minute.
Is she a blue cheese fan or not?
Oh, she hates it. She hates it.
Related to feet, right?
Yeah, she thinks
Smell
it's
of
feet. Wow. No,
No,
go ahead.
These days, I'll tell you, like, the way I eat at the shop now is, I think a lot of cigar smokers would question my cigar reviews if they saw the way that I eat, because lunch is usually no onion rings. No onion rings. I'm not a big onions guy. For me, lunch is usually a can of tuna in a bowl, 1 serving of cottage cheese, 2 mashed up hard-boiled eggs, throw some mustard on top of that, and maybe some hot sauce, and that's what I eat for lunch almost every day.
That's awesome.
If isn't blue cheese like plume?
It,
On a
right.
steak, it sure can be. Absolutely. Yeah, it's the only real
Yeah.
plume there is. If it gorgonzola cheese on a filet mignon, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. There it is. Steak with
There it
foot
is. Steak with foot sauce. I knew that was
sauce.
coming.
Yeah.
Well, what I loved about this tonight, Tim, is the fact that we get to, because even the people that are here from your show, this is probably not a side that they've seen, because it's always about cigars and stuff like that. And I think that this is nice for you because you can just relax and just talk about things that you're interested in and stuff like that. And it means a lot to us because, as a content creator, you're one of the experts, in my opinion, just watching it and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Big time. Tim, if you retire from the shop and you're just doing cigars as a hobby, not a business, what if you put out a show about something else? What would you want to talk about every week?
The number of hours that I have spent thinking about what type of channel I could make that I could actually monetize, I don't even know if I could count those hours. Coincidentally, the establishment hates everything I love. Fighting, red meat, premium cigars, shooting, like all of that stuff. They're just like, that's the devil, Ricky Bobby. And I'm like, it seems okay to me. I don't even know. Like, for me, I've always been majorly into things that I believe in and that are powerful for me. And when I was in college, I sold Cutco knives.
Oh my gosh.
And I loved it because I truly think Cutco knives are some of the greatest consumer knives made anywhere. And
you'll see another comment from Tig Lily here in probably a couple of seconds.
All right, good. Yeah, put it in there
that as well.
I still use Cutco every day in my house, and I love my Cutco knives. But like, when I love something, I fully dive into it, and I don't have any idea what that would be. For me, I do have a terrible habit of turning my hobbies into career style things. Cigars is a perfect example of that. And so I'm not enough of an expert in the stuff that I love right now, like dinosaur bones, fossils, and outer space and everything like that. Like, I read about it at leisure, but like, I don't know enough to like talk about it. And so I don't know, like, there are a lot of guys who do personal lifestyle things and just talk about stuff. And I've always been sort of jealous of that. Like, on my channel, if the conversation veers off of cigars, everyone loses interest really fast. So I really need to keep it cigar centric in order for it to be worth anything to people. But I would love to be able to do a channel and a show where it was just topical and we could talk about different things and, a lot more like what you guys are doing here. Like, this is the kind of stuff I really love. I like having conversations about the tactile things, about the ethereal things, about ideas and floating those things out there. I often listen to Joe Rogan's podcast and I'm like, I love that this guy gets to talk about whatever the hell he wants. And like, some of it is stuff that I'm sure some of it hits more than others. I'm sure there's a reason he talks about aliens a ton because that's what people really tune in for, right? but I don't know. I authentically don't know what it would be, but almost anything could be monetized.
I figured out your second career, Tim. Well, it would like fourth career. You know, you go to the state fair and they've got that one tent with all the vacuum cleaner and that Shopsmith Mark V. You're going to be the guy on the corner with the Cutco knives, showing how they can cut through the tin can and then the tomato, and just drawing in the audience.
You cut the.
I can see you doing that.
All the Cutco salespeople would teach each other how to cut a penny with the super shears, which is one of the best things Cutco makes. The super shears, you cut the penny and you can make a flower, you can make a little scorpion out of it. Like there's all kinds of different stuff you could cut a penny into. And so like I used to know how to do all of that. Yeah. I could sell the hell out of some Cutco at any fair.
Yeah, I can't remember how long my wife sold Cutco, but we have them everywhere. We have the super shears, we have the
she sold that too?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, she sold Cutco. Yeah, and I never even heard of them until I met her, and yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing knives. They really, really are.
All right, here's our last question for the night. Coming full circle, what do you think about Muhammad Ali seeing UFOs? Is that a popular
That's a real thing. He did.
I mean, yeah, you talk about a guy like Muhammad Ali seeing UFOs. What, like, the question
he got his head beat up pretty good too, though. So you got to take that into it.
He lived here in Phoenix, and he used to go to boxing gyms, even when he was kind of Alzheimer'd out or Parkinson'd out or whatever it was that got him. He used to go to the gyms. He'd go to the gym that I trained at a lot. I never saw him there, but they say he'd kind of come in and he'd kind of be in his own world and kind of be sitting here like this. But if you were hitting the bag and you were doing really well, like he'd kind of like look up at you and like watch you for a while. And like if your form was really good, you kind of be able to get his attention, which is cool. But you know, as far as Muhammad Ali seeing an alien, like here's why that matters. Because you can be reasonably sure, because he was so popular and famous and in the public eye, that he's not just a backwoods nut job, which is what you automatically assumed for a long time about most people who said they saw a UFO until the iPhone came out. And now, if you see a UFO, you scramble your pocket, you get it out, you're like, oh, I can see a UFO. And people are filming them outside of plane windows and from their backyards and from everywhere. And now it's like, if you haven't seen a UFO, like you're kind of missing out because a lot of people are, right? So like, do I think he saw a UFO? Sure. But I definitely think he saw something he couldn't explain.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people have seen that.
Yeah. Well, finally, we just want to remind everybody that if you want some really good content, make sure you go over to Cigars Daily Plus. It's got great content. Tim has a wealth of knowledge that is just it blows me away. In fact, this humidor that I'm sitting at, before I even met you, you did a review on this Adu, and I was like, this guy's got so much energy. I mean, and this was before you got into your svelte shape. And I was like, man, this guy is like, he loves this thing. So, of course, me being a lemming, I went out and bought it, and I like it. So, in which I'm going to do with another.
Tim, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to do another one, but no, and Tim, you know, we really thank you for being here. I mean, Dave and I are both big fans to begin with, obviously cigar smokers, and just know that anytime you want to come on the show, anytime, we would love to have you, and we'd love to. I'd love to see you geek out at the paleontology area of the Gem Show one of these years. That would be awesome.
My sister lives in Tucson. She keeps telling me to come down there. What I need to do is I have to keep in mind that I'm trying to save money for my children's children and not come down and buy a Velociraptor, because that's what I want to do.
No, as long as you pass it on, it's okay.
He's got a point there.
3 Velociraptors for everyone.
That's right.
Exactly.
You have to get 3.
I want to thank you guys for having me on. This has been just a pure privilege for me and a great conversation, which I don't get nearly enough of. And so I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity.
Well, and I also appreciate your viewers that came over to see you and stuff like that. And Skip brought something really nice that I like, because I know Skip's part of the CD Nation. Got to head out, but thanks to Tim. I'm looking forward to watching the Dave's future content, because it's nice seeing a different side of Tim. And that's what we do here. We talk about everything. I mean, we're not, you know.
And we didn't even bring up Tim's OnlyFans, so we got content for the next show.
Yeah, this will be the next show.
Yeah.
We're gonna start doing feet stuff soon, so got that.
Oh, also one final thing, because a certain person that's in this trio, their state hasn't been smart enough to realize that you don't need to change your clocks. Starting on the 10th of March, we will be back to 6 p.m. Arizona time.
Okay.
Arizona
For all of our
time.
Arizona viewers, you need to
No,
clarify.
it's 6 p.m. because it's 6 p.m. See, that's the one thing that Tim did that we should have done from the very beginning. Tim just says the show's going to be at 6 o'clock where my butt's sitting. Period.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad I did that. And it doesn't move. People are like, what, the show? Is it canceled? It's like, nope, it's just a different hour. And you know what? I don't even know if it's an hour earlier or an hour later. I don't care. Show up if you want to be there.
See, that's what I'm aspiring to be, but unfortunately my partner here won't let me forget it. So anyhow, everybody in the lounge, we really want to thank you so much. Tim, as always, we want to thank you. And this has been one of the greatest shows. I mean, we really, really enjoyed it. And we hope to see you again soon. And don't forget, Monday nights, 6 p.m., Tim's live show. And we'll be able to show you that as well. So I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful evening. And we shall see you the next time around. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.